Welcome to Prenatal Yoga. Today we're going to be doing a short practice together today. You're going to need a blanket. If you have a yoga bolster at home, that'll work too. I'm going to use a rolled up blanket so that you can see, because I think most of us don't have bolsters at home. So this is actually a blanket that my grandma made in the 70s for my aunt and uncle when they got married. So this is kind of a cool blanket to be using for us today. So we're gonna find a nice, comfortable position, gently closing our eyes. And if you're pretty far along in your pregnancy, so if you're in third trimester, I recommend sitting on top of your blanket. So gently closing your eyes here and just drawing your attention to your breath. Allowing yourself to come into this moment, and any thoughts you're having, letting those go in the shelf, in the cupboard. They'll come out later after the practice. And allowing yourself to just be here in this moment with your baby and you. Gently opening your eyes, coming into child's pose. So coming into a kneeling position, we're going to bring those knees out nice and wide, bringing our blanket in front of us long ways, and bringing the blanket where our knees are and allowing our body to rest here. So as you're pregnant, you want to make some room for baby here. So if you need to move this a little bit further forward so that there's room for baby, go ahead and do that. And we're just going to rest here. If your shoulders are hurting, you can bring those shoulders back by your feet. Gently closing your eyes as you're here and allowing yourself to relax. This is one of the few poses that our pelvic floor will naturally relax. So this is a really important pose as a prenatal person because I'm just going to rearrange myself a little bit. Because a lot of yogis have problems with having tight pelvic floors during birth. So we want to make sure that we can relax the pelvic floor. It's something we can practice so that baby will come out easier. And one of the reasons I like to emphasize that is because I was in labor for 3 hours with my son, like pushing labor. I pushed with him for 3 hours, and it was because I had a really strong pelvic floor, which has its pros, definitely. But when you're trying to get a baby out, it can be difficult. So definitely practicing relaxing the pelvic floor, just consciously unclenching any muscles that are down there. And allowing yourself to just relax here. Your body's doing a lot of work as you're pregnant. Maybe even closing your eyes here, allowing yourself to just relax and be calm. And as thoughts or worries come up, letting those go off to the side. And of course, acknowledging them. It's okay that they're there. We're just going to rest right now. Placing your hands in front of your knees, gently pushing yourself up, and coming onto all fours. You can slide your blanket away. Coming onto all fours here, knees underneath the hips, hands underneath the shoulders, and just swaying those hips left and right. Taking as much freedom here as you want as you're making those movements. Returning to a neutral straight spine. Inhaling, dropping the tummy, looking up. Exhaling, arching the back, peaking high at baby. Inhaling, dropping the tummy, looking up. Exhaling, arching the back. And taking this at your own pace with each of your own breaths. Now, one of the things that can be hard while we're pregnant is getting some good sleep. It starts getting really uncomfortable after a while. So this is a practice, these cat and cow poses that you can use when you're trying to fall asleep. It's basically just a really effective breathing exercise to help you fall asleep. And allowing yourself to take as much leeway. So if you want to, rock back and forth a little bit as you're doing these, that's totally wonderful. Go ahead and do that. Maybe even closing your eyes. And returning to a neutral spine, swaying those hips a little bit. And here, extending one leg straight out. I'll show you it from here. So coming into all fours and then letting one leg come straight out here. So allowing our hips to sink down a little bit so you can get a nice stretch in that inner thigh here. And as you're here, maybe allowing yourself to relax a little bit in the pelvis, maybe closing your eyes. Maybe allowing yourself to notice if baby's wiggling around a little bit, or maybe baby's resting. Maybe closing your eyes here and just paying attention to letting those hips open up. Maybe sending a little message to your body, letting it know that birth's going to be wonderful no matter what happens. And bringing your knees back underneath the hips, maybe swaying a little bit, maybe doing a couple of cat-cows if that feels good to you. And then stretching the other leg straight out. And allowing that hamstring to get, or that inner thigh to get nice and long. And allowing yourself to really relax into this pose, letting the hips sink down so that you can get a nice stretch. And if you're having any pain in your wrists here, you can always come up onto your fists, and that's totally fine. And you can also grab a blanket, the one that we used from before, and put it underneath your wrists to raise your wrists up so your fingers, your wrists can get a little bit of a break here. Coming back onto all fours, and maybe going into a couple of cat-cows here just to relax that lower back a little bit. And walking those hands in front of the knees, coming into lightning pose. So we are flexing the feet here and coming up onto a kneeling position. So you can either leave your toes down or you can flex your feet. Either of that is fine. And we're gonna come into a gentle camel. So we're just gonna place our hands on the back of our pelvis here, and where our sacrum is, like as if we're putting our hands in our back pocket. And we're just gonna look forward. But if you need a little bit more, you can go ahead and open up your chest and lean back a little bit. So what we want to avoid here is any pulling on the tummy. So if you feel any kind of pulling on the tummy, look forward and straighten up your spine a little bit. So we're just getting a little bit of a back bend here, but it's gonna look different for everybody. So earlier in your pregnancy, it might feel really good to come like this, but further on in your pregnancy, it's probably gonna be enough for you to be, somewhere like this, where you're just kind of looking up a little bit and getting a little bit of a mini back bend, and that's totally fine. And coming back into lightning pose here, just resting here for a moment. And returning onto all fours. Tucking the toes and pushing back into downward facing dog. Now, if you're in your third trimester, go ahead and stay on all fours and come back into cat-cow. because going into downward facing dog can allow baby to flip, like if they were breech, and then flip into the head down position. So that's useful for you if baby's not in the right position. You can try doing downward dog, but if they are in the right position, you want to kind of just leave them alone. So if you're in first or second trimester, go ahead and come into downward facing dog, just alternating pressing the heels into the ground. Oh, and I went on a run earlier today, so my legs are really, really tight right now. So just allowing your heels to gently walk down to the ground, alternating. And again, if you're in third trimester, just doing a couple more cat-cows here. And everybody gently coming down onto all fours, swinging the legs around, coming into a seated position. Placing your hands on your knees or maybe one hand on the belly. Letting your eyes close. And letting your breaths get as long as baby and your lungs will allow. And allowing yourself to relax the pelvic floor, letting it sink down into the ground. Placing your hands at heart center. Thank you for letting me be part of your practice today and part of your journey as a mother. And congratulations on your pregnancy. Namaste.